Welcome, everybody. So you are, just to make sure, you are in the room number 10, the Growing Community Resilience Through Network Weaving, Trust Building, and Bridging Divides. I'm going to move through this as quickly as possible and turn it over to the presenters so that they can have their time to do their thing. But I just wanted to let you all know, my name is Manuel Padilla. I'll be the moderator today for this room. And the panelists will be presenting for up to 20 minutes. And during that time, please feel free to post questions that you have in the chat. I'll be selecting a couple of those at the end of the presentation when we move to the discussion session. Panelists, if you'll kind of organize yourselves, and those who aren't answering questions verbally, if you can, the other two of you can answer questions in the chat so that people can get answers, or in the chat will be saved, of course. So there will be answers to as many questions as possible. That would be great. And I'll give you a 2-minute warning before it's time for the presentation to be done. I'll also give you a 2-minute warning before it's time for the discussion section to be done. So we have about 30 minutes total for this entire presentation and discussion. So with that, I will kick it off to Rick, who will introduce himself and the others, and go ahead and start with the presentation.
Good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to have you here. I'm going to just introduce the team and kind of what our plan is for the presentation. I'm assuming you can see the screen I just shared okay. Should be a slide with a pretty picture. Okay. So first of all, my name is Rick Morse. I'm an associate professor here at the UNC School of Government, your neighbors down to the south. I'm excited to be able to contribute today. As a native Virginian, grew up in Southwest Virginia, did my doctorate at Virginia Tech. And so it's always nice to connect with my people with me. And I am a project advisor consultant with the project that we're talking about today. Barbara Garrity-Blake is a cultural anthropologist who received her PhD from the University of Virginia. So she's feeling right at home as well. She teaches community-based marine conservation at the Duke University Marine Lab in Beaufort. Beaufort is the kind of main municipality in the region that we're going to be talking about today. And she also is a staff or coordinator, if you will, from the community for this effort that we're talking about. And also with us is Dre Nix, who originally is from St. Vincent and Grenadines. How nice it would be to be there today. As she's been a youth development professional with the Boys and Girls Clubs of America for most of her career. And she is currently serving as the COO of the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Coastal Plain of North Carolina. And she is a community partner in this effort. And so our plan for today is to talk about what this acronym here at the top of the slide, it stands for Eastern Carteret Collaborative, okay, that's Eastern Carteret County in North Carolina. ZSR stands for Z. Smith Reynolds, which is a really critical statewide philanthropy in North Carolina that funds a lot of really exciting community-based work. And CPS is the community problem-solving. That's basically the grant program that this work is falling under. And so that's kind of what that all stands. And Barbara is going to start off giving more background and kind of context to this effort. And she's also going to kind of explain the approach of what we're doing in background, and how she'll do that in just 10 or so minutes. I'm not exactly sure, but she's a magician, and I'm sure she'll be able to do that. And then Dre is going to pick up after that and give her perspective as one of those community collaborators that has been able to join this work, and will be able to give you her experience And then at the end, we'll hope to maybe draw a few kind of lessons learned or some observations that'll open up into the Q&A afterwards. So Barbara, with that, I'm just going to hand you the baton and let me know when to change the slides.
Great. Thank you, Rick. Really excited to be here. So yeah, I thought we'd start off by orienting you to where our project takes place. So Rick, if you could move to the first slide here. This should be familiar to many of you, especially in Virginia, because there's Virginia Beach. There's the line, the Virginia-North Carolina line, and down on the bottom, you can barely see the South Carolina-North Carolina line. So on the coast, we have three main capes. We have Cape Hatteras here at Diamond Shoals. We have Cape Lookout here where it says Harker's Island. That's where we are. And then south is Cape Fear. So we are dead center in coastal North Carolina. And it's not as familiar to people as, say, Nags Head is to the north or Wilmington is to the south. But this is where we are, right here in this Cape Lookout region. Okay, Rick. Now we're going to hone in on our county. You can see the white county border here. We're a very long county. It's called Carteret County. So there's a kind of a natural dividing line, right? I hope you can see my cursor. I don't know if you can. You probably can't. But where Rick is, that's Beaufort Inlet, and there's a little canal up there, which is the Intracoastal Waterway. That's Rick's cursor. So our project, you can kind of eyeball this and see everything to the left or to the west is more of a built environment. That's where we have our shopping centers and Walmart and all that. But to the right of that little canal, you can see that that is not a built environment. That's very low lying and rural. There's a big farm in the middle of the whole place. You can see that there's many, many waterways. So this is the, I guess, the historical and sociocultural context of our project, that we are working with 17 communities, only one of which is an incorporated town, okay, and that's Beaufort. The other 16 are unincorporated villages. The population is predominantly white overall. We have just under 10% of African Americans in this Eastern Carteret County region, most of whom live either in Beaufort or in a couple communities on the outskirts of Beaufort. To the far east, that is the Down East area, which is almost entirely white, made up of fishing villages. We have a strong maritime-oriented history. Most of the occupations historically have been fishing, boat building, and there was a fish processing center in Beaufort that was the largest employer of African Americans in the county. That closed in 2005, and really most of the maritime occupations have experienced quite a decline in the last couple decades. And with that has come some economic hardship, the social ills that we usually associate with a declining economy, and really for many of these communities, a torn cultural fabric. So because though I think of this maritime background, the people in these communities are very resourceful. They're very can-do folks with an independent mindset. And that very strength is also a weakness as, larger problems loom that no one person or community can deal with, like climate change, like the opioid epidemic, like, so many other problems that we're facing. And because of the independent mindset, folks are not really inclined to, they don't want to cross divides to work together, whether that be a geographical divide, a cultural divide, a racial divide. People are kind of dug in and are distrustful, have somewhat of a defensive posture. So when the Z. Smith Reynolds folks made this grant opportunity available for community problem solving, it really struck to the heart of our problem, because their grant opportunity asked, what are some effective ways we can bring people across boundaries to collaborate for a more resilient community? And that is exactly the problem that we are trying to address here in this collaboration. How can we cross these boundaries? How can we foster a spirit of collaboration? So we are one of 5 projects that Z. Smith Reynolds funded as part of this program. And so we form a cohort, and the other, these projects are across the state. We are a little bit different than the other projects in that we aren't focusing on a specific issue around which to collaborate, right? We're not focusing on our efforts on, say, the need for affordable housing specifically, or the need for greater food security. Our focus is, how do we build the collaborative muscle? How do we build a collaborative mindset, right? So we keep our focus on the process itself, leaving space for any specific issues to emerge organically as this project unfolds. Okay, maybe.
And Barbara, real quick, you want to give a minute about the kind of triggering event of Hurricane Florence?
Yes, thank you. So yeah, so I guess it's been 3 years now. Hurricane Florence really devastated our region, particularly in the eastern part of the county, because we are so low lying. And so these communities were literally cut off from one another. They were turned into islands, particularly down east in the northern part of the eastern county. And so what that exposed, it exposed our weaknesses as a county, because the response to communities and to specific areas was uneven, right? It showed that we need to better coordinate our emergency management efforts. We need to be more equitable in how we disperse help. And of course, it also exposed the strength of the people in the area who really stepped up and helped their neighbors. But that was the catalyst, really, to this whole grant program. It showed we need to figure out how to work together and how to coordinate our efforts and bring forth the skills that are really already seated in our communities to the forefront and build leadership. I mean, I think that's one of our biggest voids in our region, is the need for leadership. And so that's a really important component of our project. So thank you, Rick, for reminding me of that. Okay, so this graphic sums up our whole project, really. And there's a lot in here, but I'll try to be brief in what I focus on here in this slide. So, but in a nutshell, we are, the way we're bringing people together to affect change is called collective impact. And, the way we work together is called dynamic governance, and it's all with an eye toward developing what we're calling collaborative leadership. So that's just in a nutshell. But if you look at this graphic, so on the left, you can see some of the partners that are involved in this collaborative approach. And so these come from, the town of Beaufort, the schools. Dre is here for the very important after school program, the Boys and Girls Club. We've got partners that are, we have a civic group that represents down east, and we have just citizens that are in their community that are all key collaborators in our effort. And these are folks that are really, they're leaders. They're willing to cross bridges. They're willing to work to build trust and to learn to work together. I want to give a shout out to my co-staff member who was unable to be here, who's Christy Scheiday. And I will say that really it was Christy's vision that got this whole ball rolling in the first place. So I'm sorry she can't be here with us today. I hope I can do her proud. On the bottom of our graphic here, you can see the various lenses through which we do our work. And I think some of these definitely track the elements of the 6 elements of equitable collaboration that is so important to this gathering today: personal resilience, cultural difference, equity, empowerment. We're taking a systems approach in that we look at not just one specific thing, but the relationship between things. We ask, what are some of the underlying forces that are giving rise to these wicked problems that are hard to solve? And then network improvement or weaving is so important. So on the far right are our overall objectives, and I'll just focus on the main two, which of course is to build a collaborative partnership in Eastern Carteret County and promote community resilience. An important part of that is promoting personal resilience. And so, part of our efforts involve a lot of personal resilience training. And our overall goal is that these collaborative partnerships will outlive the life of the grant itself. We originally got funded for 3 years, and we just got a 4th year of funding. But we want these partnerships to strengthen and to be viable and meaningful and impactful beyond the life of the grant. Let's see. I also wanted to make sure to mention a little bit of how we're going about our work. So we have all these collaborators that are brought together. We have about a little over 50 people that are our key collaborators, and we've broken them into 3 teams. And so these 3 teams meet monthly, if not more frequently, depending on what's going on. But one team is specifically focused on network weaving. The second team is focused specifically on capacity building, right? What are the skills? What's the training? What are the strengths we need to bring to bear in our efforts here? And then the third team is focused on what we call shared aspiration, but it's engaging with communities in our area to understand, what are some of our common problems, and what is can we derive a common vision that is broad enough where the whole region can get behind as a goal. So, our process is deliberate, it's slow, right? We're not quite halfway through what's now a 4-year process. But what we're really doing is we're creating a container, if you will, or a platform. And by container, we mean that we're creating a shared space around which to come together to deepen our connections and be comfortable outside our comfort zone and address shared issues of community concern. And we differ from the other projects, again, because we have to work really hard not to let, say, one issue overwhelm our focus on the process, and Z. Smith Reynolds is very much interested in learning about that process as well. So let's see, I think maybe I hit on most of the points, Rick. So next we'll hear from Dre.
Thank you, Barbara. Hi, everyone. I'll do my best to do justice to what's being asked of me here. As stated, I represent Boys and Girls Club of the Coastal Plain, and we serve 7 counties in North Carolina within our organization, which is divided into 3 regions, and Carteret County is part of what we call Region 3 with Craven County. Just to give you a little bit of background of who we serve in Carteret, that Beaufort area, just a little background. We have 49% of our families served there, and this is last year's numbers, even with us being closed for about 8 to 9 months because of COVID. The income is $25,000 or less. That's 50% of our families are at that income level. 53% are single families. 89% of the kids that we serve within our clubs are on free and reduced lunch. And during COVID, because of being part of this collaborative effort and understanding what some of those needs are, and from hearing from our parents, we have 3 clubs in that, 2 clubs actually that are specific to that Beaufort area. We in the months that we served meals throughout being closed, the clubs were closed to service, but we did meals. 17,590 meals were served. And that's a total of 615 families that we had registered in the clubs the day that we closed our doors. It was a no-brainer for me to get involved in this collaboration because one of the things as youth development professionals we realized is that as those of us as leaders in our communities, as they think about what the future of that community, we tend to overlook the young people in the community right now. So I tend to approach our meetings and our discussions as, okay, where is there an opportunity for one to speak on behalf of our young people to get them involved? Because a lot of the issues that we discuss, with what we do, we see it firsthand in the children that we serve each and every day. So this was an opportunity to really get some insight. And then, as stated, I am not native to North Carolina or the United States, so I love to get involved in these opportunities because it gives me a better idea of the community that we're serving and how better to serve them within the job. Florence is really what kicked off everything for us. Florence destroyed the picture that you're actually looking at. That is our teen center and the original club that served that community 22 plus years ago. Florence destroyed it. We actually had to close it. It was closed for a year, and thanks to the community, someone offered some space. We can serve the kids. So that was actually the reopening of that particular club after rebuilding from Florence. But our kids lost a lot of school. They were just coming out of that Florence and the trauma there, and then COVID hit. For a lot of our kids, the Boys and Girls Club is where they, it's home away from home. They all come for something different. But what I realized is, as we stayed in touch with our staff members, I realized that in order for us to better serve the families and the young people in our organization, I had to make sure that the staff themselves, because a lot of our staff members, they themselves are individuals who are taken care of by other organizations and other groups in the community. They are local, they know their community, and they work for us. So it was in one of our meetings after COVID that I mentioned my concern for the state of mind, the trauma that now our kids are dealing with, and then what can I do for my staff to help them help the kids that we were going to be responsible for once we reopened our doors. And through this collaboration, there was a shift because our community we need to reach out to address the food insecurity in the community, which came to light, which was very much in our face. And then also around trauma, like to really look at it. And, I say this all the time, thanks to this collaboration, I was able to offer, like I said, 7 counties. I'm responsible for over 60 full-time staff members and 100 and something more part-time staff members that serve. We were able to get the resiliency training that we would not have been able to pay for. But through this collaboration, it was an opportunity that was presented to us. And every single one of our staff members who were responsible, who were leaders within our organization, was able to get some training that was very much needed in order to prepare us for when our kids came back to us. And for some of them, that was home. We wanted to get our doors open. What we realized also with our staff members, once we went through the training, is that it helped them break the cycle of trauma within their households. They were able to better recognize what our kids were going through. Now, youth development workers, we see these things all the time. And as Boys and Girls Club, we pride ourselves on the relationships. The programs and everything are great, but the relationships that we have with our kids and our family is what makes it what we do work. And so being able to have that training and to arm the staff with the tools, and excuse me, because I get very emotional when I talk about my kids, my staff, and what we do. That's, you would think after 20 something years, will come naturally, but to be able to arm these individuals with that level of training and to give them simple tools to help our kids and even help themselves. Words cannot describe. To this day, we did that training. We shut down in February of last year, and I think we did that training less than about 2 or 3 weeks after we shut our clubs down. And to this day, I'm a Boys and Girls Club worker, so we always give, examples. walk into a club, and I see this all the time, and I share this when I go into any of the number of clubs, but right here in our elementary school site in Beaufort, I walked in, and there across one of the tools that we learn is if we're having a bad day, and we all use it, find your space and just kind of push against that wall and just push. The wall's not going anywhere, but you're pushing, and to find, to kind of ground yourself and find the space. It is the most incredible sight to see a 6-year-old walk over to a little space in their, in their club, and even with a friend, and start pushing against the wall and have a conversation and saying, how are you feeling? Because we pair them up. When we know they're struggling, we know their peers are usually other than us. It's usually a good way to get them, beyond where they are now. And there they were, a little 6-year-old and 7-year-old, just pushing on the wall and having a nice conversation, all because through this collaboration, we were given access to training that as a nonprofit, we did not, we didn't know COVID was coming. We did not budget for, but it was needed. And I appreciate the fact that I was heard in the community and was not overlooked because, oh, you guys are just babysitting kids, which we don't, but they saw the value in arming my staff and myself so that we can better serve the youth in the community, who then take those same tools and share it with parents, because we get those stories. We hear, Mr. Ray, what are you teaching my kids? I was having a bad day and I mentioned it to my son and he said, Mom, you should really push on the wall. Let me show you how. So the way I look at it, what we're doing here is not only impacting and making a difference in trauma and how it's dealt with now, but it's going to impact our community in the future, because I see my children in my club right now. They're the future community leaders. So why not give them those tools at age 6, 7, 8? And my teenagers, we all know they know everything. But when the teenagers do it, or they're leading a class within the club and using those tools when there's someone, having a difficult day, that's what it's about. So this has been, on behalf of my whole organization, this collaboration here, it came at a time when we needed it the most, and they continue to support. We teach our young people within the club, a lot of the lenses that we look through, these are things that we reinforce in the club, personal resilience, cultural differences, that's huge in the community in which we serve. A lot of our families, grew up in a community where they feel like they're not part of what's being done in the community. Another example is through here, we just sitting at the table and listening about the CD planning and things like that. I brought to their attention, have you guys thought of maybe involving our young people in the community about what the plans are for the community? Because you can build it now, but they're the ones who are going to be in place to lead in the future. And so now we can use this in our club to give our kids a voice, and those relationships we have with our parents who normally will not attend the city meetings and things like that, but they do come to the club to pick up their kids every day. We know them, we know who they are, we know everything about them. If we say, hey, here's something that we think would be of interest to you, do you mind taking this survey or answer these questions? And that's how we get them involved. So that networking and the community connection, it all plays in that way. So it's not just about Boys and Girls Club serving young people, but it's Boys and Girls Club through the relationships with our families and our connection to this collaboration. We're actually getting our kids and our families involved in the development of the future of the community, so that, years from now, 20, 30, 40 years from now, these young people that we have who we're opening these doors for, when they're in position of leadership in the community, they would approach community issues a different way. And so that's what we hope for with what we do. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to share our experience as a youth development organization in a collaboration like this. And any questions you have, I'll be glad to answer. Thank you.
Thanks, Dre. That's awesome. And I wish I could, and maybe Barbara could do a better job of this than me, but try to convey the emergent nature of what Dre's talking about. So part of our team, our advisor team, is this psychologist that does resilience training. And we knew that part of the overall effort somehow, some way, was to try to build community resilience. But I think there's kind of a question mark exactly when and how that would get happen, and really a lot of it has been emergent as needs have arisen, people have identified opportunities. And so part of the footprint of the effort are these resilience workshops that not only are building these kind of skills in a way that, and I love how Dre, talked about how it's not just her and her staff, but it's the kids and their families and in this kind of effect, but also it's connecting Dre and her staff to other people in the community that they're not usually connecting with. And that's the part I wish I could articulate better, is the whole kind of down east versus North River and these bridges that are being built in terms of like networks. And maybe Barbara could speak to that a little bit as a lesson learned as we field some questions here.
Yeah, we want to definitely make sure to get to questions. We only have 4 minutes left.
Oh my gosh, okay.
So thank you so much, presenters. Does anybody, we'll get to one, maybe two questions. Does anybody have a question that they'd like to ask? I saw a couple of things in the chat about, you've gotten to the heart of the matter, which is trust building. Somebody had a question about what metrics and outputs you use to measure success. Maybe you could kind of address that and connect that to the principles of equitable collaboration a little bit, and kind of help us to understand how you thought about that in your own project.
Joe, you want me to take that?
You want to take a crack at that? Yeah, then I'll.
Because metrics has always been, it's kind of hard, right? Because it's how do you measure success, and what we're working on are just so many intangible things that are usually thought of as intangible. But one important metrics is just the number of people that keep showing up, right? They keep showing up, and that number is growing. People that are willing to cross these bridges, that are willing to do what we call the learning together, the thinking together, right? We're big on public learning, and I'm just always amazed that time after time, people are willing to do this. And the personal resilience training, you're really, getting into some deep stuff and some vulnerabilities. And I think that in doing that, we are helping foster such trust among collaborators like never before. So that's just been really great. And then seeing people enter new spaces that they maybe before didn't feel like they were welcome, or that they didn't have the trust to enter these spaces, right? And when I talk about crossing bridges, there's a civic group down east, which has been, mainly like white fishing communities. Well, Dre and some of her Boys and Girls Club have started attending these meetings, and they're talking to our folks who have an after school program on Harker's Island. And, we got some pushback from the traditional leadership in this area, leadership that's been really held by kind of powerful families for a long time. And so at one of the Down East Council meetings, we had one of these folks, these traditional leaders show up and was sort of having a negative reaction to our project. And Dre was there, and Dre just spoke right up and said, no, I'm sorry, but here's the value of this project. And I thought that was right there. That's how I measure success. Dre is in this Down East space, and she's speaking truth to power. And it wasn't just Dre. There were 5 other people on that call that are involved in our collaborative that also stepped up. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's to me really shows how what we're doing is working.
Great. And it looks like Dre and perhaps Rick have addressed one of the questions here, starting with community connections and, about how did the grantees begin the process of doing initial outreach with other stakeholders. We just have maybe 30 seconds if anyone wants to add anything more to that.
Yeah, I would just add that it is organic, but it's also strategic in the fact that, part of the building bridges thing is like literally, there's historically underrepresented, part of the community there, predominantly Black, that there was definitely special outreach to really make sure that they were coming in from the beginning, but to another extent, there's a lot of other folks that kind of came in because the door was open